Our next speaker is Alison. She is part of Cisco, and she's going to be presenting to us. So I am going to go ahead and make you the boss here. If this little layout thing gets out of my way. All right, take it away, Alison.
Thank you. I apologize in advance. I have very large dogs, and unfortunately, they sound like a herd of elephants. So you guys find that you can't hear me. I apologize for that. Let me know and I will kick them outside. Can you guys see those slides okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. First of all, hi, I'm Alison. Welcome to my office. This is where the not so magical stuff happens. I wanted to thank you guys so much for having me as a speaker this evening. And I wanted to congratulate you guys on the award that you received yesterday. It's really touching and such an honor to be able to speak to you guys. I also wanted to say that I know that this is kind of an off-brand topic to be presenting to a group of InfoSec professionals. I promise it's relevant. We'll get to that within the presentation. Please note from the beginning, though, that while we are talking about the transference and transition from ITIL version 3 to ITIL version 4, the most important part is not what changed, but more why it changed. Sorry, I'm having somebody escort my elephants outside. All right, before I dive into the serious stuff, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about myself so you know who's talking to you. That's me, that's my face. Like Carlos said, I like to be outside. And here I listed some of my accomplishments that are pertinent to my own journey. I have a BS in English and an AS in English. I retired from the Army last year. I worked with petroleum supply, hazmat, ammunition, aviation operations, and engineer operations, specifically construction management. I'm a member and volunteer of ISSA Raleigh. I was a Valor Games Southeast medalist. For those of you that don't know what that is like the Disability Olympics for veterans or service members. And over the course of 2019 to 2020, since I've been out of the military, I went from being a Tier 1 NOC engineer to a NOC lead. I have a Security Plus certification, an ITIL version 4 certification, and a DevOps certification. What I'm working on next. I'm shooting for CISSP in 2021, and I'm enrolled in an MBA program focused in cybersecurity management, and hopefully will graduate in 2023 if the world doesn't continue to interrupt my life like it's doing everyone else. To loosen it up a bit, here's some fun facts about me. I know, who doesn't game? And for the record, later on when I open it up for questions, I am more than willing to explain how it's possible to have a Turkish German Shepherd. This is super important, this slide, because I like my job and I don't relish the thought of being fired. This is my disclaimer slide. I probably never said that if anybody asks. So the views and opinions expressed in this session are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the position of my employer, my family or pets, my friends, political affiliation, because I really have none, my service organizations, any nonprofit chapter or InfoSec organization I pretend to belong to, North Carolina, or fake news. I also want to say there's a lot of pictures in here. I don't own the rights to any of the pictures, ideas, or content. I got these off of Google or off of some of the training that I paid for, so I don't own any of it. Additional disclaimer, I really would like this to be an interactive presentation, so I'm going to be asking questions, whether you are a viewer or one of the admins on here from the ISSA chapter. If you want to say something, unmute yourself and say it. Even if you think it's the wrong answer, I would like to hear from people. Now the meat and potatoes. ITIL. What on earth is that? The name ITIL comes from its old name, which is the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. It's now owned and managed by Axelos, and it is an ITSM framework, which is IT service management. A framework, by the way, in case you don't use them or you haven't heard the term within your IT experience so far, is a foundational outline from which to build. So in this case, it's a framework that helps us build ITSM architecture. So to give you a better perspective, I want to talk about the origins and history of ITIL. It was first created and published in the 1980s to address a gap in the quality of services and to provide guidance on service management within IT. Version 2 was released at the turn of the century, around 2000, 2001. Oof, that's a lot of years from now. Typo, I'm so sorry about that. Version 3 featured life cycles of services, which were formatted in such a way that it allowed for a plan, do, check, act approach. That's sometimes called a PDCA, if you guys have heard it used before. That was released in 2007. So until 2019, when version 4 was released, we were using something that was last updated in 2007. And I think we can all agree that when it comes to technology, using something from 2007 is not just behind the times, it's archaic. If there's any dinosaur nerds on here, feel free to speak up, associate it with your favorite dinosaur in the chat. ITIL V3 was an absolute dinosaur. It wasn't a living framework, and it could not account for things that in 2007 were unimaginable. So now you guys know how and why version 4 was born. I want to take a minute to really drive home why this topic is relevant to all of us, whether you work directly within managed service or not. This is a quote from Stephen King. Amateurs sit and wait for inspiration, while the rest of us just get up and go to work. And it leads right up to, why is ITSM so important? For most of us in the IT industry, our job is providing service. Whether you're in a managed service or you're in a tech department or you're sitting on a security council, either way, you're providing a service. And we don't have time to wait for inspiration, especially when the hard work has been done already. And there are frameworks like ITIL that give us best practices and guiding principles. There are several other frameworks, but all of them are literal directions for success that have already been vetted by people with more experience than we could ever hope to garner. So let's ask ourselves again, why do we as InfoSec people care about ITSM frameworks? Tell me the biggest hurdle that all InfoSec professionals face. Does anyone tell me? Anybody in the audience got a guess?
People.
People? It's not a bad guess. You're almost there. Is anybody else?
Process.
That's true too. I would say, in my own very humble opinion, translation. That might not make sense at first, but hear me out. As an information security professional, your biggest battle will always be getting business management to hear you, respect you, and provide you with the resources you need in order to do your job. There will be times when a security best practice is not deemed to be worth the money and effort required, and the people with the money are going to tell you, maybe later, it's not convenient right now, it's not a priority at the moment. And since I work with her, and I feel like I can do this to her, I'm going to pick on Nia. Nia, can you pop in and give us an example of a time when you saw security best practices pushed to the back burner because the people holding the money and wearing big business hats did not understand the business value of that requirement?
Well, gee, thank you, Allison.
You're welcome.
As we all know, this year has been a very unconventional one. So I'll say that up front. And it's affected many corporations globally, but I mean, I think it was felt everywhere. Everybody on this call, I feel like, can attest to that. So leading up into the first couple months after COVID, Nia, who is the SOC manager for her project, said, hey, let's start threat modeling some things. Let's start looking at our ACLs. Let's start looking at our hosts. Let's start trying to migrate to something a little more relevant known as zero trust. And whack, I was told the priorities had been shifted. Why? Wasn't really given one. I was just told, nope, we need to shift, we need to pivot, we need to focus here. Fast forward 6 months, we were hacked. So nothing detrimental, nothing impacting, nothing, that impacted services in any way. However, in the lessons learned, it's, well, what do we need to do to threat model? How do we get back to that? So that's my example.
And it's an excellent one. Thank you for sharing. Sorry to pick on you. I just knew inherently that you would have a good one. So let's keep that at the front of our minds as we go through this presentation. And let's talk about not just the differences between the archaic 2007 version of this framework and the current version, but the reasons why that change was necessary. The biggest and most important change that was made between these frameworks is the definition of value. Version 3 was focused on delivering value to the customer. That is inherent, and it is what we all strive to do. Whether our customer is our employer or the entity on the other end of the managed service. Version 3 recognized and perpetuated that as service professionals, it is our job to deliver value to the customer. Version 4, however, evolved to define value as something that is co-created through the service providers and the service consumers. This means that value creation is a collaborative effort. So, if value creation is a collaborative effort, what are we talking about that's changed here? Remember that what we're trying to take away from this version change is not necessarily what, but why. Does anybody have a guess as to why this definition changed? It's kind of hard, so I'll just go ahead and make the next click. Culture. Culture changed. And when culture changes, frameworks change. So if you look at the world around you, our roles are no longer defined by our job descriptions alone. They are composed of the innovation and ingenuity we bring to the table. And we no longer have the luxury of doing the bare minimum that's required of us through the consumer contracts and partner agreements or our genuine job descriptions. We no longer sit quietly and deliver only what has been asked of us. We are the catalyst for a conversation that is titled, "What else can we do?" And that conversation is between us and whoever we are working for. So our organization, our teammates, our adjacent teams, stakeholders, consumers, customers, everyone. And it's a conversation that looks less like, did we do what you asked us to do? And more like, hey, tell me your experience, tell me what you thought of what we did, what you'd like to see, and what could make it better. That conversation is about feedback, transparency, and user stories. And even though I really don't like it, if anyone here is familiar with Agile Scrum, user stories are a big deal. They are catching and everyone's doing it. But let's not get away from this idea. Remember, we are talking about value creation being a collaborative effort and how that idea comes from a culture change. So I want to ask you guys this question, and forgive me for picking on you again. I really need some answers. Nothing's wrong. You can say whatever you feel. This is a safe place. I just ask that if you want to have a go at guessing, you keep it a little concise. Do we have any takers about what our culture is embracing right now? Nobody guesses. I'm going to make Nia do it.
That's not fair. I saw your slides.
She's not wrong. All right. Well, if nobody wants to guess, I can tell you guys what I've seen. So I have seen people that are broaching big topics. I've seen people opening up closed doors and broadcasting to the whole world what's been going on behind them. I see people that want a world that works together, that makes positive change, that brings us a better tomorrow. And I see technology becoming a more and more integral part of every piece of our lives. I see all of this, and honestly, it makes me really excited about the possibilities. And that's what we see right now inside of IT culture. We see a trend toward inclusivity, collaboration, innovation, transparency, strategy, optimization and automation, and everybody wants DevOps, Agile, and Lean. And if you're well-rounded in keeping up with the times and the expectations, you can associate a lot of these things with emerging trends that have turned into expectations within the IT industry. So if we pull all of these things together, we are looking at a huge push for change in our world and our global culture that is propelling drastic, rapid change within IT. Keeping in mind that we are focused on cultural change within IT, let's start talking about some of what changed in this new version of our IT service management framework. Guiding principles are ITIL's foundational blocks. They are in both version 3 and version 4 and are inherent in all aspects of ITIL. They're intended to guide absolutely all movement within an organization, whether that be people, strategy, business, technology, literally everything. These are the guiding principles from version 3. If we read through the list, we can see that it sounds pretty fabulous, right? Focus on value, design for experience, start where you are, work holistically, progress iteratively, observe directly, be transparent, collaborate, and keep it simple. If we keep those things in mind and use them as a philosophical foundation, we are sure to produce value for the customer, right? Well, version 4 has taken these and run with them. You can see that some of these were kept and combined just to enhance them. We still have focus on value and start where you are. We have progress iteratively, but we added with feedback, and that's that collaborative piece we talked about earlier. We still have collaborate, but we added promote visibility because that's from that cultural change. And we still have work holistically, but we've added think to it because thinking this way sets the stage for working this way. And we still have keep it simple, but we also added practical. And last but not least, we now have optimize and automate, something that wasn't even a consideration in 2007, but now in the modern area of ITSM is something that is absolutely necessary, is 100% expected from us. The other big change was the movement from service life cycles to practices. Version 3 has 5 service life cycles under which certain processes lived. These were those plan, do, check, act models that allowed for process tracking in version 3. However, when we remember that we are supposed to be thinking and working holistically, promoting visibility and collaborating, we find that these can turn into silos. If anybody doesn't know, silos are areas where work is done independently by a person or a team or an organization within a company. Silos do not allow for us to share experience or to learn from each other. So things happening behind closed doors. It's not necessarily inherently bad. It's just we can't share it, learn it, and grow from it. So we don't like silos. And version 4 aims to completely eradicate silos, and therefore it has done away with the service life cycles completely. It allows for 34 practices, which have been taken from 3 domains: general management, service management, and technical management. This was a huge cross-section poll from various industries, pulling together data that gave us best practices we could apply within IT service management to make the machine run smoothly. Version 4 also gives us this service value system in which these practices are integrated. That means that this model here shows us how opportunity and demand go into the system where these practices and other entities work, and it all delivers value on the other side. So version 4 is a very pretty picture of absolutely everything working together out in the open to deliver spectacular results. So coming off of that, I just wanted to show you guys this slide really quickly. I know it's pretty atrocious, hurts your eyes a little bit, so bear with me. This is a breakdown of those practices I just talked about. There are 34. And I know it's a fire hose, but I just wanted to give you some perspective on the aspects of service management that are addressed within these practices. Everything is accounted for. And we'll come back to this later, but for right now, it provides you a little bit of perspective. And you guys are so tired of me by now, but I'm going to say it one more time. We are talking about the why, not the what. So let's go back to this concept that value creation is a collaborative effort, which we already said is a manifestation of culture. So again, what is our culture embracing right now? All of those things that were previously listed and the current events happening around us, what can they all be wrapped up under? Continual improvement. We are constantly striving to learn and grow so that we can be better than we are today. Because no matter what we're doing, whether it's our life or our work or our industry, we want to move forward in a positive way. So both version 3 and version 4 allowed for continual improvement within IT service management. Version 3 set up a continual improvement lifecycle. That is, identify the approach for improvement, state what will be measured, collect the data, process the data, analyze the data and information, present and use the information, and then implement corrective or remedial activities. That sounds great, right? Yeah, but it's really boring. Is anybody here inspired by that? That is all math and analysis and data, and it makes me tired just looking at it. It looks like work and not the motivating, fun kind.
I don't know. You got Carlos excited.
I see that smile, Carlos. I am happy for you.
Data is power. I could look at data all day, y'all.
I'm impressed by you. But I'm not motivated by that. So version 4 evolved the continual improvement into a practice. It works within, around, and throughout the service value system that I just showed you. But it's demonstrated through a continual improvement model, which is one of my favorite parts. This right here, this excites me. This is beautiful to me. I love this. So if you look at the right side of this, it's the business-minded and analytical parts of it, just like the steps from version 3. But if you look in the middle of this, that column is the one that brings us back to the surface of what are we doing and why. It's the motivating, holistic, inspiring view of continual improvement. So we start with what's the vision? And that can be your company, your organization, your team, it doesn't matter. What's the vision? And then you say, where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? You take action, ask yourself if you got there, and then you keep the momentum going. So I don't know about you guys, but this model here makes me want to go to work and make things better. I'm not tired, I'm inspired. So now we aren't just pushed by the cultural change, we're incited by it. And we are propelled forward by this catalyst that version 4 is built from. So this slide pulls out some of the things that changed in the transition from those lifecycle processes to the version 4 practices. It's really ugly, so don't hate me, okay? I'm not going to review all of them, but since we're talking about the cultural change that prompted this, I wanted to highlight a few of these. So business relationship management changed to include all relationships, not just those that were monetary. Supplier management changed to include a more inclusive definition of suppliers. So this isn't just the company that brings you your paper and pens or your monitors and keypads. This includes the people that provide your internet, your people, your electricity. It's all inclusive. And then transition planning and support got a new name. Oops, go back. It got a new name, but it really just got called what it always was, which is project management. The difference, though, is that it shifted the focus from major releases to all projects in the organization. So again, we see a trend of inclusivity here. Now, this one's really, really ugly. So sorry. These are the ones that are completely new. So I will say that most organizations had a process for this, or they grouped it in with ITIL version 3. A lot of these things were already allowed for, but ITIL 4 is the first version that actually separates these things out. And if you look at a couple of them, they're incredibly important, right? Architecture management, measurement and reporting, risk management, workforce and talent management, because wow, are your people not integral to everything you do? So important. And then service desk. So that is your entry point and exit point for all things to do with your customer. And then we see infrastructure and platform management and software development management, which again, remembering that ITIL version 3 was 2007, those are new ideas and new concepts completely and totally. So pretty amazing things that were brought in just to support modern ITSM requirements. And I know you guys are probably exhausted now, your eyes are probably bleeding, but let's go back to the beginning and ask why ITIL version 4. It meets modern ITSM requirements. And it focuses on value co-creation and the eradication of silos, therefore embracing the cultural change that's driving the business needs and service needs of IT. And it supports DevOps, Lean, and Agile, which are huge, big ticket names right now. They are the big, new, shiny toys that everyone wants to play with. But most importantly, information security professionals must be capable of translating security requirements into the business management language that is spoken and understood by our managers in order to be heard and advance the needs of our profession. That is of the utmost importance. And I'm showing you guys this slide again in hopes that you will see what I see. ITIL version 4 says that all of these practices work together, both inside and outside of each other, to produce value. They feed each other like Ouroboros. If you guys don't know what that is, that's like the snake that eats its own tail. It's really creepy and gross. But they are the inputs and outputs of each other. And you can see some of them up there that are integral to what you do, things that are inherently related to security. So if at the end of the day, information security professionals cannot speak to these concepts and the business vision as a whole, and the security requirements and best practices of security are placed in the back burner for later, whenever it's more convenient, less of a hassle, then how much of what you see on this slide is effective? Because if they all work on and off of each other, if one goes down, the whole ship goes down. If you can speak to the framework of IT service management, if you can speak the business language, then you can better advocate for your profession. And before I open it up for questions, I'm going to do the really awkward thing. And I want you guys to pull all of this together. And I also want to leave you with some pieces of me. Since I've been given the honor of speaking with this community, I'd really like to share everything I can with you. So I want you to know that I practiced this presentation with a live audience twice. Once was for my girlfriend, who is a healthcare professional and completely tunes out when I talk about IT. I'm not kidding. She goes completely zombie-eyed. I picked her because I wanted the perspective of someone who doesn't live in this world every day. And when I was done, I asked her if she understood the presentation, and she said, yeah, you have to have security so you can keep everything safe. And at first I laughed and thought she missed the entire point, but bless her, she was right. That's absolutely the point of this presentation. If you don't have security, you don't have anything. And that is why all of us do what we do, right? And we talked about culture and change and translating things into languages that will enable you to be heard and understood. And I just want to share with all of you that this has been my personal recipe for success, being able to speak to different aspects of my organization and translate things and communicate and be understood. If you paid attention to the slide where I introduced myself, you could see that the math doesn't really add up, right? I retired from the Army in 2019, and I did not work with IT in any way while I was in the service. And I started working as a Tier 1 network engineer in August of 2019 and have been promoted 5 times since then. I know, I can't believe it either. Within 2 months of me working in the NOC, I was a shift lead. A month later, I was training new team members. 2 months after that, I was the NOC lead, managing the people as well as the service desk and network operations. And at the year mark, I was converted from a contractor to a corporate employee. And really exciting news. 2 days ago, I was asked to be the engagement manager, which is the customer liaison, the customer's go-to guy for a new contract that is a 10-year, $120 million contract. And I don't say all of this to brag, because if you want to know who was the most surprised by these events, it was me. Every single time. I was shocked. One of my favorite phrases is, I guess, a Gen Z thing, but it's shooky cookie. Like, I was just super dorky, sorry. But yeah, I was shocked every single time. And my director called and asked me if I wanted to take this position, and I was like, okay.
A shooky cookie.
Yes, shooky cookie. You're welcome for that. You don't even have to cite me. You can go ahead and use it. But I say all this to share with you how I got to where I am in the year and a half I've been in the IT world. Because I'm an IT baby, completely. I was brand new, green as grass. And I want to tie it back to the presentation because it's relevant to you no matter where you're at in your career. I got to where I am because I asked questions. If I didn't understand something, I went and asked. And thankfully, I was blessed to be surrounded by people who were willing to help. I've very rarely ever encountered somebody in this industry who didn't want to share their knowledge, right? We're all nerds. We all want to talk about it. They're going to answer you. But I didn't just ask them questions for show. I retained what they taught me. I flipped it around and I shared it with the people around me. I taught my teammates even before I was supposed to. I wasn't their trainer. I just said, hey, guess what I just found out? And I continued to seek out knowledge and understanding of my job role, my organization, and how everything worked together. I've heard it said that knowledge is power, but understanding absolutely must go hand in hand with that. So I want to encourage all of you to reflect on your own roles, your cog in the machine, so to speak, and then go seek out a holistic perspective of the machine itself. I was a network engineer, but I wanted to understand the architecture better, so I got a Security Plus certification. I worked in managed service as a network engineer, but I went and got an ITIL certification. And then I heard about this new shiny toy named DevOps, and I was like, oh, what's that? And I went and got certified. You have to want to know. Curiosity did not really kill the cat, or rather, the cat has 9 lives, so it doesn't matter. But if you understand the whole mechanism around you, then you can better see the connections that will allow you to do better and be better. And at the end of the day, that's how you get a seat at the table. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I hope that you take something from that. And I hope that you got a holistic perspective of something as simple as a framework being propelled to develop and alter itself completely due to the culture around us, and that you can see how what's happening outside of our skiffs, our knocks, our socks, our works, it affects everything inside of it. So I will open it up for questions. And remember, I did say I would explain what a Turkish German Shepherd is if anybody's interested.
I think we should lead off with the Turkish German Shepherd explanation.
Good. I love talking about my dogs. So I bought a German Shepherd, and I wanted a long hair. And the long hair breeder that was in Pennsylvania didn't currently have any puppies, but his friend that was in Turkey did. On an off chance, he was breeding short hair German Shepherds and accidentally ended up with long hair. So yes, I had to wait to get my dog for 5 months because she had to get a doggy passport. She got turned away from customs twice, and my dog is Turkish. So fun fact about that is that while at certain times they do allow dogs in the building that Nia and I work in, it's a government building and you have to have your citizenship validated first. So one of my dogs can never come in, not an American citizen. She has a doggy passport and everything. It's in another language. I can't read it. It's great. Does anybody have any other questions?